Alex Mordew, you are not forgotten. We should start, I believe, with follow-up. It looks like you've entered some stuff in the show notes here. So what have you got to apologise for, Ryan?
I've had a tendency over the last probably 10 or so episodes to never really bother putting in the corrections that I probably should for the stupid stuff that I've said. Because obviously I go through and I listen and I make the show notes, and I'll usually just put a kind of self-deprecating joke about how wrong I am in there and leave it, assuming that everyone looks at the show notes, which I know is definitely not true. There's one from last episode that I do need to address, and that is literally everything I said about battery safety. Do you have any idea how uncomfortable it was for me to listen to myself be that wrong for that long?
I do, and when it happens to me, I cut it.
You often talk about the sort of discomfort of speaking, what's the word you use? Extraneously?
Extemporaneously.
That's it. About things. And I've always thought I'm fine with that, but this is an example of me definitely not. 1 minute we're talking about batteries, then there's a horse, and I just don't know what happened. But listening back to it definitely helped me crystallise my opinion, which is actually, yes, I would quite like a hard and fast rule of battery out, fight over. And I think the really persuasive point that was made on Facebook, actually, by I think it was Gareth, was this idea of, well, who decides whether the other robot is not dangerous enough for us to stop the fight? Do we really want to be sat there going to people, your robot, it's weedy, it's nothing, we continue? So yeah, I have been persuaded that I was very wrong, and I apologise to everyone who, unlike us, doesn't have a massively damaging weapon.
The thing is, if someone said that they wouldn't stop a fight because our weapon is really weedy, I'd be like, that's fair enough. I got no problem with that.
I'd be completely the same, but that's because we have, multiple times in testing, hit our own hands with the weapon just to see how weak it is.
Don't tell people that.
They've seen the testing now. They know what we're about.
We are completely safe 100% of the time.
We have a robot that fails the can test.
It's flawless.
But yes, that's what I was wrong about last time. Let's see what I'm going to be wrong about this time. Follow-up, done. How do you want to proceed?
Right, so while we were at Bugglebots, Alex Mordew came up to us and complained. No, I didn't complain.
He berated us.
He just sort of... he accused us. No. He just commented that we didn't talk very much, if at all, about Sore Loser last season. And at the time, we couldn't really remember why. But reliving the issue this year, we know exactly why, which I think it was the same as this year, which is that Bugglebots aired over Christmas, and the heat that Alex was in aired in the week of Christmas, and we're both busy, and it's hard to record. And last year, we just sort of moved on, didn't find a chance to try and catch up, and just sort of carried on. And didn't talk about all the robots properly, which we're going to do differently this year. So we are recording this on the 29th of December, so a bit later than usual. Hopefully we'll get it out before episode 4 of Bugglebots, but we'll see. And we will talk about Sore Loser in this episode. It will happen. We shall not fully rectify the sins of last year, but we will at least not repeat them.
So let's start off by talking about Wide Boy then.
Oh dear, what a wonderful robot Wide Boy is. It's sole its sole purpose in life is to be wide, and I think it achieves that very well, and is also like more effective than I thought it would be. Like, you think, oh, this is a sort of a silly idea, but it's not. It's sort of a very hard robot to get around and fight, and you know, he's got Alex has got this great wedge on the front of it that's pretty robust, and it's very hard to not hit it. So yeah, it's a great little robot.
I don't think I ever got Wide Boy until I saw it fight live. And even this fight was quite a good demonstration of why it works. It's not just falling into that it's weird enough that no one has a plan territory that things like Huge have really thrived on. It's a genuinely smart design concept, which has then been executed very well. When Sore Loser, a robot that can attack in so many different ways, is starting to look like it's out of ideas against you, you know you're onto something. Not that I think Sore Loser necessarily explored all the ways it could attack, but this was a real challenge for a very, very powerful and destructive robot.
It's yeah, you're right. It's just a remarkably challenging robot to fight. We also have sore loser in this heat, in this round, in this fight. So sore loser, unlike last year, is a bit more of a spinner rather than a saw. All the different has he got different attachments this year? I can't remember.
I'm not sure it was ever a saw. It had, what, a six-toothed blade, but it also had, I think, roughly the same set of blade designs as it had this year.
Yeah, I think it's got I think it's got fewer saw-like designs or saw-like implements this year than last year. But yeah, I would have categorised it as a spinner both years. I think as soon as you've got something that can gyro dance like that, it's not really a saw anymore.
In this fight in particular, I think the way it's driven is what's really key. It's driven as a four-wheel drive vert that can self-right.
Yeah.
The arm isn't really used offensively at all, which I do think was a shame. I think there were a lot of opportunities where the disc isn't really getting a bite on the front of Wide Boy, but it looks like that fork is in position for a good lift.
I think what was happening is that the fork on the front of Sore Loser and the sort of, I don't know what you'd call them, the sort of the teeth, I guess, on the front of Wide Boy,
the toes,
were almost interlocking, and sort of I think that if Sore Loser tried to lift it, I'm not sure it would have gone very far, because I think that's what's preventing it from getting a good bite as well. I think that a good approach here may have been to sort of spin Sore Loser backwards and sort of attack from the top. But obviously, thinking of these things in the heat of a fight, if you've got a plan already, is hard. I mean, I can fully imagine that if it were me, I'd be like, I've got an idea and I'm just going to blindly stick to it no matter what. So it's very easy to look at this and go, oh, you should have attacked it from the top. It's very easy to do that if you're not in the fight.
I think it would be easy to go for those alternative strategies if you feel like you're losing. But for most of this fight, Sore Loser was largely in control. And one thing that I think we saw from Alex in general in this episode is that he's not one for the big finish. If he's in control of a fight, that's fine. Hold that. No need to take any big spectacular risks. So once Wide Boy loses one side of drive, all these different ideas of try and use the lifter, try and use the weapon overhead, they become a lot less risky, but still more risky than you need. And I think that level of, I was going to say restraint, that's maybe not the right word, but that sort of calculating approach is something that kind of defines Alex as a driver.
Calculating, unwilling to damage his opponents, these are all words that can describe.
Do we want to get into that? How do you feel about that?
I think we can. I think we should discuss that when we get there.
Oh, all right then.
There is an order here. There are rules to be followed.
No, you've always been anti-order and anti-structure in that way. What is happening?
Christmas has changed me.
Has there been so much disorder in your life that you feel the need to rectify it?
No, everything went remarkably to plan this year, actually.
Well, that's all right for some.
Had a plan, executed it well, nothing went terribly wrong. Forgot puddings on one day. Anyway, we shouldn't go down that avenue.
How to date an episode.
Well, I mean, I did just say the date that we recorded it, so it can't get much worse.
Shut up. Any more to say about this fight?
I think the way that Wide Boy went out was a bit sad for Wide Boy. Just kind of like unceremoniously losing drive on one side and then not being quite mobile enough. But I guess this also does show maybe a bit of a difference between the rules in this and I guess older series, at least of BattleBots. Of like, this, Wide Boy was still moving, but didn't have meaningful drive, and so was counted out.
I can't remember exactly what the rule was/is on mobility, come to think of it. I think it is the classic Robot War style move out of your circumference. But I think there's also, whether intentionally or not, I think the judgment does vary by how the fight is going. So this is a fight where, yes, they were still kind of moving around, but the only way they were winning was a spontaneous failure of Sore Loser. I think if there were more going on, maybe you look at that level of mobility and go, let's see where this goes.
I mean, like later on, I think it's is it Apprentice versus Rev 4, something like, maybe not that one actually. I don't know. There's I forget which fight. We'll get to it, but there's a fight later on where both robots are sort of similarly immobile, but there's still scope for some pretty interesting hits. So I think the fight sort of carries on a bit longer.
Shall we crack on then to Unconscious 514 versus Lameheart, a fight that did not end with any crab walking? As I remember, we were really pumped for this one.
Yeah, well, I was super excited to see it. I obviously love Crushers and Unconscious. Is it 514, 514, 514? Don't know how you want to say that. It's a beautiful robot, and I think building a Crusher that can do anything in a beetle weight, sort of with a beetle weight allowance, is no mean feat. And I think this is a stunning robot, and as shown in this fight, it has got power in the weapon, and I think that's fantastic.
Unconscious is min-maxed to the max. When you get a look at the rear end of it, that's what I think. Is it 2mm polycarb it's using as rear armour?
It may as well be paper. There's not much there.
You've got those beautifully milled sort of supports for the weapon, and I think some very likely 3D printed supports for the drive, and then the massive, massive wedge. This robot is so incredibly dialed in for something that hasn't competed before. And as you say, this was the perfect fight to show off not only the power, but Shirumi's driving as well. Because Lameheart is not an easy robot to chase. The drive on that thing, and Owen's driving as well, is incredible. He's got that kind of Will Bale's Hypershock thing going on of just doing donuts in the arena and staying faced up to his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, the driving on Unconscious is good. I think it's hampered obviously by being too low in this arena. It's almost like confined to one quadrant. But between this and the fight later on against Sore Loser, yeah, like I mean, Shirumi does a great job of keeping the right end of his under-armoured robot pointing at the enemy.
It's also nice to see him with a robot that does actually hold together when the wedge gets hit, because the thing he was driving at King of Bots really had a great tendency to fall apart.
Oh dear.
A word for Lameheart as well, an incredible upgrade on the first version. The drive in particular, so fast, so manoeuvrable.
Yeah, that thing's crazy how quick that thing moved around. It's not quite at the gear down for what level of teleporting around the arena, but it's certainly a hard robot to track. And I think, like you sort of said earlier, like very well driven as well. Like driving a robot that fast is a challenge.
I think most of the fun, though, of this fight, for us at least, was the post-fight as they brought it back into the pits. And a crowd just suddenly appeared around them as they separated.
Yeah, so we didn't get in, or I don't think I got in to see this fight on the day. But yeah, seeing the aftermath of it was really cool. I mean, the damage on Lame there is... It's not well shown, I don't think, in the video. But like there is a big hole in the HDPE, sort of like the beautifully bent outer sort of side of Lame has got a big hole gouged into it by Unconscious's weapon, and like it's not as if it's just going through the 10mm stuff. It's kind of like, because it's the whole height of the robot and it's putting a hole through a lot of it there and stuff. It's got a lot of power behind it. It's really cool to see.
Actually, yeah, that's something that might not have been very sort of clear or easily understood from a viewer's perspective, because seeing damage on white HDPE is hard enough. Unconscious wasn't just going through the very thin top armour. It went right through the body.
Yeah.
It's gone through probably 30, 40mm of HDPE. Just coming straight down through that sort of... I was going to say the end grain. This isn't wood.
Yeah, I mean, like, Unconscious has bitten basically the hardest bit of Lane that it could have done, really. Like, if it had got a bit further in, it would have just had to go through the top armour and that would have been it. Where it got, yeah, it's going through the toughest part lame there. And yeah, it's the kind of damage that you do just sort of need to look at quite closely and move your head around to sort of see what's going on, because it's all so hard to see in just white HDPE.
There was a whole conversation that went on when they got back into the pits, which I think unfortunately had a bit of swearing from a couple of people, which is why it didn't make the cut, where it was basically just Owen talking extremely excitedly about the fight for about 20 minutes. He was so incredibly happy with how his robot performed.
As he should have been. It did perform very well, aside from the weapon. Ooh.
I mean, that's just part of the Lane brand, isn't it, really? The weapon has to not really work as expected.
Oh, dear. It's such a shame. I'd love to see a spring flipper go. And, it looked like it, so how does it work? It's a compression spring, isn't it? So, it starts up and then has to get pulled down. And that seemed to work. And I don't know if Owen just never had a good opportunity to fire it or what happened, but I don't think it ever went in this fight, and then got broken as he was trying to sort of escape the grip of unconscious. I think the gearbox for doing it broke.
So all I know is that it stripped some gears.
Yeah.
Owen has got ideas of how to make a spring mechanism work at last, but I feel like you could probably go through that process 10 times, and actually making it work seems like a crapshoot almost. And it just makes me reflect on the time during the sort of initial stages of building Hello There, when we thought we could do a spring-powered axe. No, we couldn't.
Oh my goodness
me. There is no world in which we could make that work.
Anything's possible, Ryan. Just got to dream big.
Dream big, like an entire workshop, maybe, instead of making it with hand tools.
Yeah. What do you think of the ruling for how the end of this fight was decided?
I thought that was a very standard thing that did not surprise me at all, and was surprised when people were surprised. Not that I think anyone questioned it. It is... I mean, there are a couple of different ways that pit rules are done. The first is first touch the bottom, in which case it's clearly lame. And the other one is the aggressor wins, in which case that's clearly unconscious. So it's the same result no matter what way you look at it, really.
Yeah, I have no issues with the result at all. I just think of what I was expecting for whatever reason, just what I would have expected is the aggressor wins.
I must admit, at the time, because we only got to watch it on the screens in the pits, which didn't give obviously the best view, because they were just... Why were they there? I don't actually know why we had screens in the pits thinking about it, but it was fun.
So we could watch the fights.
Yeah, but you couldn't watch half the fight because it wasn't in camera view. Anyway, completely irrelevant. Watching it, I didn't realise that it had ended with a pitting. I thought the two had just got stuck and it had gone to the judges.
Oh.
So for me, watching it go down the pit, total surprise.
Amazing the things that can surprise you despite being there.
When we were preparing for this episode, I accidentally started going through my notes for episode 4, not episode 3, and realised that I'd got the results of 2 fights in my head completely wrong. So my memories are completely flawed.
Worthless.
I am.
No, your memories are worthless. You are not.
Talking of worthless things, no, not at all.
Brutal.
Talking of things with great worth. No, that just sounds even more sarcastic and horrible. You'll have to do this link now. I can't do it.
No, I want to see what you do.
The Apprentice versus Rev 4 is a fight that also happened. There you go. You now have a choice between reintroducing it or leaving all of that together.
So 2 spinners in this fight. Feels like it should be pretty exciting.
2 very scary spinners at that.
2 very scary spinners that on the surface seem kind of similar, but they're actually almost polar opposites in some ways. Obviously, you've got the overhead spinner of the Apprentice, and then the underhead spinner of Rev 4.
The throat spinner?
Oh man!
Ugh. Oh, that's weirdly visceral.
Not a fan of that analogy.
We had the pleasure of seeing both of these in the test arena. And Rev 4 is extremely powerful and extremely volatile, I think is the best way to put it. As that design of undercutter always tends to be. The Apprentice, on the other hand, is scarily composed. I remember standing next to the test arena watching it, and if I hadn't watched it spin up, I would have thought it was just a flat box with nothing on it. You could not see the weapon moving, you could not hear the weapon moving.
Yeah, it's very well balanced. I don't understand how, I mean, it's possibly a dumb question, but how does Rev's weapon not hit the floor? With the obvious caveat that it does sometimes hit the floor. But in general, like, I don't understand how with only 2 wheels, how you can have an undercutter that doesn't, like 2 wheels and then the point of rotation for the weapon all seem to be collinear. So I don't really understand how it's not tilting forwards and backwards and then having the end of the weapon hit the floor.
I think the simple answer is that it is doing that. But because it's hitting the floor at such a shallow angle, it just sort of pops itself back up a little. It's basically maintaining balance by constantly grazing the floor.
But like, you don't really hear it doing that. Like, you don't hear the sort of scraping on the floor because you can hear Splody Boy hitting either the floor or possibly itself. But I'm pretty sure you can sort of hear it sort of like almost like a little bell sound as it sort of like dings the floor occasionally. But I don't feel like you ever heard anything like that from Rev.
I think that's to do with it running on a dead shaft in the case of Splody Boy.
And the other thing that about Rev is that it just kind of it moves over the seams in the arena floor without any issues, which again kind of surprises me given that it's either got some kind of magic that I don't understand that stops it from hitting the floor, or it's sort of grazing the floor a lot. I don't know, it's just odd.
I think part of the answer is that Felix is a genius.
Maybe he's some kind of wizard and is doing something to keep it level. And I guess also the gyro effects possibly help it once it's up to speed.
Yeah, once it's up to speed, I think what you have is that effect of it constantly skimming off the floor as it's sort of getting up to speed, and then the gyroscopic effect kind of holding it steady once it is up to speed.
Yeah.
But it does sometimes go wrong, and anybody that wants to watch that can go to the Battle of the Berg Gladiator to see what happens when Rev decides to take flight. There are other places as well. It's just the one that really springs to mind here.
Did you just say Battle in the Berg?
I was watching it earlier today as well. I was going through a couple of the heats. I was watching Daedalus' heat. I was watching Dwayne Nibley's heat because obviously.
This was the episode that we had to re-record, but the first time we recorded it, Ryan was very unhappy with me for pronouncing it Battle in the Berg. And I don't think the frustration was quite there in the second attempt of that episode. But I'm glad that you have made that mistake.
The difference is, when you did that the first time, it was because you thought it was correct.
No.
That was just a slip-up.
I was doing it specifically to wind you up.
And that's somehow better.
Yes.
Okay.
You said Battle in the Berg accidentally, and I never have.
The Battle in the Bruff.
In the Bruff. Battle in the Bruv.
Bogglebots. That's a thing that's happening.
So this was a 2-hit fight that took longer than it should have done.
So this is what you were talking about in terms of large amounts of crab walking.
Yeah, so both robots, I think, sort of lost drive in the first hit and then kind of crab walked around for a little while, longer than I would have thought. And then the Apprentice gets one final hit, which is also spectacular, and does remove Rev's wheel completely in the end, and that's it.
I'm not sure that the Apprentice lost drive per se. I think it was just struggling with how low it is.
I think the front right wheel was jammed up.
The way it looked to me, it was finding high spots on seams and kind of getting beached on its centre. Because obviously when you're doing an overhead spinner, you want to keep it as low as possible. So there were very, very small tolerances on all of that machine, including the base plate being very low down. It could be a little column A, a little column B as well.
If only we could ask the people involved.
If only I had my phone next to me with the Facebook chat with literally all of them. No, this podcast is built on hearsay and conjecture, and that way it will stay.
Under-researched. It's the only way to go.
This is the most informed we've ever been, and we're still not all that informed. What I do know, for sure, is that there are a number of reports of this being the loudest collision of the whole series. That first hit apparently was deafening.
It doesn't come across in the mix.
No, which apparently is strange.
Well, I guess if you had... I will not hypothesize about what's going on there.
No, we want an in-depth analysis of the audio mixing on Bugglebots, Sam. Come on.
Well, it's either an intentional thing, which is fine, or the mic they were using to recording it had some kind of automatic gain compensation thing going on that just dipped it when it went loud.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just took it down for the benefit of headphone users.
No, don't be doing that. You gotta have the maximum dynamic range, you know? Go from something that's really quiet to having a very sudden loud bang, and you just got to accept that.
If anything, what they should do is make sure that everyone speaks more quietly so those loud moments could be even louder.
Yeah. My joke there of doing a loud bang is going to be completely ruined by the compressor that I do on this podcast. That's all going to sound the same volume.
You played yourself.
Yeah.
The question is, will you now go to the effort of not applying the compressor to that part?
Nope.
No commitment to your own jokes.
No. No time.
Yeah, this is definitely a fight which is great because of a massive first hit, but in a way is also slightly spoiled by that massive first hit. Both of these are pretty durable machines. They could have traded some blows.
I mean, I think it shows a lot of durability from The Apprentice, because that first hit utterly destroyed Rev's weapon. And aside from some minor drive issues, The Apprentice seemed largely unaffected by it. I don't know what it was like internally afterwards, but like it definitely came off a lot better from that encounter than Rev 4 did.
I still don't understand how that hit took the weapon motor out. I know Felix has explained that it was only really properly held in by 2 bolts, but I still don't understand how that hit sends the motor up. It's being hit from the side. I'm completely confused. I'm very pleased we got to see it, because it's a hell of a hit, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that's all connected together.
Our fight commentary is so on point today.
Oh my God, we're not very good at this. Right, we should move on. Let's give up. Bail.
Pivot.
Let's find a random tangent we can talk about for 10 minutes instead.
Abandon episode. I think this is, again, an episode that we didn't see that much of live, isn't it? Honestly, I'm just shocked by how little we watch live. That's the main thread of this 6 or more episodes.
Am I right in thinking that this is all largely being done in the order, all being aired in roughly the order it was filmed?
There's been a little bit of shuffling. Some very sensible shuffling as well. The fights within the heats have been largely in the order they happened, but the heats themselves have been moved around. I think the big thing to understand from a viewer's perspective, if you want to talk about the order things happened, is that everything up to at least heat semi-finals happened on day 1. I think the heat finals may have run into day 2, and then day 2 was almost entirely Rumbles, Grand Final and Whiteboards.
Yeah. I'm just sort of like wondering like why we didn't see very much of these fights, and I feel like these were done before we had our fights. Like these were filmed before we had ours. So like because basically I feel like I didn't really see anything from before our filming session.
Yeah, we were quite scared to leave the pits in case we were needed for something. So we missed a lot of first round fights.
It doesn't matter all that much. We didn't see much of this heat, and that's just the way it went.
And it shouldn't matter, because we get to see it on Bugglebots anyway.
We should move on. We have Lameheart versus Wide Boy versus Rev 4.
What we have here is another removable link-based death that isn't actually the link popping out. Rev 4 somehow cut one of its own wires leading to the link. And as failure modes go, that's a pretty good one.
I mean, self-destruction in that way is I suspect, a challenge.
You couldn't design a robot to do that if you tried.
I could.
Oh, all right, Mr. High-Class Engineer.
Oh, sorry. What do you? Sorry. Do you mean to fail in the specific way that Rev 4 did, or just design a robot to self-destruct?
To fail in this specific way.
Okay, right, yeah. Okay, I couldn't do that.
I think we would also struggle to make something with the power to self-destruct.
Challenge accepted.
Vertical spinner split decision.
So I think that Wide Boy in this fight did a really good job at the beginning of preventing Rev 4 from spinning up. With the width and the speed always being on top of them, and it took Rev a little while to get its weapon going at all, really.
This is a really tough situation for Rev to be in. First of all, any big spinner like that is not going to enjoy a melee where there are two opponents to jam them up. But the fact they're up against two sort of brushless speed machines in particular meant it was always going to be an uphill struggle.
Mm.
And as you say, the driving from Wide Boy to come in and just immediately stop them, superb stuff. To me, if anything, the battle gets interesting once there's not a spinner in the arena, because that's always going to be a kind of 2v1 situation. And once Rev 4 is dispensed with, as it were, you get a very, very tactical driving match emerge.
Mm.
Kind of brushless versus brushless, two-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive, width versus not width. It's a battle for the ages.
I don't think Wide Boy is brushless drive, is it?
I think it is.
I thought it was just the fairly standard 25mm motors from China.
I would be stunned if Alex was doing that. Stunned, I tell you. I'm fairly sure that if you watch it driving, you can see the drive motor just in front of the wheel.
I don't know. I want to try and find out.
I am going on to the Bugglebots website right now to check. It'll probably be from an angle where we can't see it.
Yeah, the picture on the website is not helpful.
Then you must just trust me.
Well, no, because I'm pretty convinced it's brushed drive.
Right. If you go on the image, and you can play along at home, if you go onto the image on the website, look just ahead of the wheel, and I'm fairly sure what you're seeing is the outside of an Outrunner.
Well, no, so at the front you can definitely see two brushed motors which are driving the waggle stick.
Oh, wait, yeah. Oh, hello. Ryan might have been wrong. It's a first.
And then in the interviews at the beginning of this episode, he said that the weapons are driven by the same motors as the drive, which is why I think it's all brushed motors. I think he's got 4 of those cheap motors, brushed motors in there, 2 of which do drive and 2 of which do the waggle sticks.
So as I was saying, it's all brushed. I mean, with the speed of it, I assumed brushless. Well,
yeah, it is quick. It is a quick robot, but yeah, I'm not sure it's brushless. We shall see. I'm sure the comments will tell us.
There shall be feedback.
We've been wrong about things before. This could well be one of those situations.
I was taking the wind right out of my sails, thanks.
We got to see a lot of Lame's weapon working this time.
Yes, the 4-bar lifter setup.
Yeah, now how much of that, do you know, did Owen build on the day?
I don't know.
Because, well, regardless of whether or not that was built on the day or built beforehand, I think it's pretty damn impressive to have a completely swappable weapon mechanism in there. And if he did it on the day to have come up with a functioning 4-bar lifter is no mean feat.
I wouldn't put it past him.
No, I mean, people who know what they're doing can do lots of amazing things.
I guess, if nothing else, a 4-bar setup has got to be more compact than the equivalent spring flipper setup, and probably a bit lighter as well.
Well, no, because after his first fight, that's when he sort of took the armour off the top of it. And I think he was struggling for weight for most of it after that, especially.
But that was having added the wedge as well.
Oh, of course, yes, the wedge, yeah. I
don't think you'd be running that thin top armour against a Crusher if you had weight to spare. Not that it would have mattered looking at the power of Unconscious. I do remember Owen being very busy after that fight, so maybe he was crafting up a whole new weapon. Or maybe he planned to fail in the first place. Or more likely had it as a configuration so we could run the wedge. But let's go with plan to fail.
Charming.
It's more reactionary.
And the other great thing that we got to see in this fight were the waggle sticks doing something useful rather than just waggling. They were almost perfectly designed for getting in and sort of like hooking onto things inside of Lame Heart, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is the entire raison d'etre of a waggle stick. Find a gap and waggle into it.
Waggle away.
There were very few non-dirty ways of putting that. I think I did quite well.
I'm so proud of you. And then Wide Boy's width was as either insufficient or too much. What do you reckon?
I think there is no perfect amount of width.
Because Wide Boy overbalanced on the edge of the pit and went in, which was a shame. Alex reckons that he should have made it wider, and that would have solved the problem. But I don't know. Wide Boy, too wide, not wide enough. Nobody knows.
I mean, in the interest of progress, we have to assume not wide enough, because that's a reason to go wider.
Oh yeah, you need more width for sure. Definitely the entertaining option.
One day we will find out what truly is too much width.
Well, is there a size limit on beetle weights?
There's a practical size limit of can you move around the aweener? Aweener? Can you move around the aweener? Can you move around the awooner? When I say aweener, you say awooner. Aweener.
Awooner.
Thank you.
God damn it.
I was 50-50 on whether you'd go with me there.
Yeah, so was I.
So in this fight, we see another Series 1 finalist fall. Only one of the three that have returned has made it back there. As Felix said in his interview, or in his sort of chat in the pits afterwards, the step up in the field this year has really shown.
Yeah.
But that all changes next week.
There's lots of great robots in the field this time.
Now we move on to our slight manufactured controversy. Manufactured between us, not manufactured in the show. The moment you've all been waiting for since we refused to talk about it earlier. Sore loser versus unconscious 514 teen.
Oh dear. So Alex in this fight refusing to attack. What do you reckon?
I am so incredibly torn. If it's us in a fight, I think it's fair to say we want to be hit.
Yep.
We want maximum entertainment from that fight, and if that means us getting broken, so be it. That's why we're there. If we can't win, we're going to lose in style. If, alternatively, you've got someone sat there going, no, I've had enough, I've done, thank you, I need to avoid damage, don't hit them, fine. For me, the default state should be breaking things. I completely understand the rationale of not doing that, but it's kind of what we're all here for. I do, however, completely respect the decision to hold back.
Well, I don't know. There's a difference between, not unnecessarily damaging a robot and then just dragging a fight out by not attacking it. Like, I think it was clear quite early on in this sort of thing that Shroomy was up for carrying on and Alex needed to fight properly, and he didn't.
One of the advantages of Sore Loser is that it is a robot that can attack in a number of ways. If nothing else, go in with the lifter. As far as I'm aware, Unconscious couldn't self-right. So you don't have to be damaging them at all to be finishing them off.
I feel like so far in this episode we've been very negative about Sore Loser. I just want to try and rectify that. Sore Loser is a beautiful robot. Like I was over looking over Alex's shoulder, looking at the internals of it and stuff. It's an amazing machine. I really love the way the drive works. I love the way the arm is articulated and stuff. It's a fantastically well built machine, and Alex is a lovely man.
I was going to say, we've literally called him out to say, don't worry, we're here. We're here to talk about you. And now we're like, you're a terrible person and your robot is awful.
Oh, no, that's not what we mean.
Give us more of what we want, Alex. Dance for us.
Oh, man.
No, I think this is an episode where we don't get to see the full range of what Sore Loser is capable of.
Yeah, there were a lot of options left on the table, which was a shame. It would have been great to see more ways that you can use Sore Loser to do things. Like you said, using the flipper to win that fight would have been a great shout. And and doing, in earlier fights of using the arm to sort of attack, like the way that Whiplash often did, where it would sort of bring it over from the top and stuff. Like that kind of stuff would be wonderful to see. And it's during this fight that I really, really felt that the commentary this year is really good. And I think it's been uniformly really good. I don't know what it is about this particular fight that made me notice it, but like the commentary, they've done a really good job this season, like last season, but particularly this series of the commentary. I just wanted to point that out, say well done.
I've stopped noticing the commentary, which is the biggest compliment I can give commentary. It just feels like a completely natural part of the fight. I think so often, especially in BattleBots actually, I find myself watching the fight and the commentary kind of takes me back out of it. There are so many things where it's sort of very clearly, oh, they seem to be foreshadowing this, they seem to be excusing this, they seem to be drawing attention to this for, I wonder why. Whereas the BoggleBots commentary has just been completely... I'm going around in circles here, I'm havering, but commentary good.
Well, so all the BoggleBots commentary is recorded after the fact, and they've done a really good job of using the time to make sure the commentary is meaningful and sort of pointing out things that are going on and being a bit quicker about saying, oh, the wheel's gone here, the driver's gone there, the link's been taken out here, and that kind of stuff. So they've got the information to give good, meaningful commentary. But it doesn't feel scripted at all, and it feels live, which I think is really good. I think that's really impressive as well, to have this thing that where, the two guys are clearly very into it, and it just comes across really well, and it feels like live commentary in the best possible way, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like what we're doing now, talking awkwardly about fights. It feels like they're just very good at it. So well done.
Commentary is one of those things that I think we all think we could do. And I think we're proving quite well that we probably couldn't.
Oh, it'd be so hard to do. So hard to do.
Anyway, that's enough of criticising our heroes.
Oh, dear.
Should we move on to The Apprentice versus Lameheart?
Yes, let's.
Quite big issues for The Apprentice in this fight with the spin-up. Do you remember what was causing it?
All I know is what was presented in the show, I think, which was some kind of electrical issue that was preventing if he tried to go too fast, too hard, it would just kind of bail out. I don't know what was going on specifically, but these kinds of things I think can happen, especially with brushless systems and stuff.
The reason I ask is that I remember on the Saturday morning, quite a lot of the Saturday morning was taken by spinners going in the test box and checking they were working okay. Because, of course, not many opportunities to test your spinner, especially if it's a new build like the Apprentice's. And as I recall, Mark was having some difficulties with belt tension. So I wasn't sure if this was a reoccurrence of that, especially with the switch over to the heavier bar, or if it was something completely new and different and novel.
I suspect that, because this is a new build, and, like you said earlier, quite sort of low tolerances with things, I suspect that it's just lots of teething issues. I think the belt tension's part of it. I suspect that they're just issues with the... because you need to sort of have the power to weight of like the motor, and if you have like a too heavy a bar, that's going to cause problems and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know the specifics, but it's just one of those things, I think, that's just the nature of new builds. And this is the guy's first beetle weight as well, isn't it? And first spinner, so... It's the way it goes sometimes.
And even with those issues, it's delivered some reasonable hits.
Oh yeah, it's still a terrifying robot.
Again, it's really hard to see the damage on Lame because it's white. But there were some good sort of nibbles and chunks taken out of it. Owen, next time, mate, paint your robot. We'll lend you some pink if you need it. It's all good. Because we want to see the damage.
Yeah. I think Owen had... good tactics for most of this fight. He obviously went for the pit as soon as he could, just to sort of make sure that option was there. And I thought the idea, however it was executed, the idea at the beginning of having the keep away stick and just trying to unbalance the Apprentice, I thought was a great idea as well.
In so many ways, Lame went full tornado mode in this fight. The keep away stick is just the beginning. My favourite moment of this, possibly the episode in general actually, despite all the really big hits you have, is that few seconds where the apprentice is kind of a bit stunned against the wall, and Lame is just ramming it and backing up and ramming it and backing up. There's something I've always loved about the raw brutality of just driving into your opponent like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a viscerally satisfying way of attacking, really, isn't it?
This whole fight, again, the weapon really doesn't come into play for Lame. And it's further proof, if that proof were needed, that good drive, good driving, and basic reliability can get you really far.
Yeah, I think if you've got a powerful four-wheel drive box, I think you can get a long way through the tournament.
The only thing you'd really want to add for Lame is invertibility.
Yeah. Is it in any way inverted? Like, if he had the spring flipper, is there enough kick in it to get it over again, do you know?
In principle, I think so. In practice, I don't believe so. What I always find strange with Lame is that the wheels do protrude through the top, but it's not invertible.
But not enough. Not enough to get invertibility.
I'm guessing that's just a sort of compactness thing.
Yeah.
But this is a hard-earned win yet again.
Yeah.
And Lame, as Owen called, is a Heat finalist.
Indeed. Exciting stuff.
And now I guess is the moment that we get to be nice about sore loser.
Oh, man.
We get to give sore loser the praise it deserves.
Yeah. So the final for this heat is sore loser versus lame heart.
Always kind of strange for your final to be, in a sense, your most routine fight. But it wasn't necessarily going to go that way. Alex has done a very good job to get this done quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Lame's exceedingly quick and well driven, so getting a good hit on it is a challenge, I suspect. Alex has done well as well to get the all important hit and flip him up. Really, it's sort of the probably the only way to win this fight, short of pitting it. I can't imagine. Well, I don't know. Like, I think you'd have to work quite hard to get through all that HDP and start doing some damage to actually disable the robot.
I guess in a way we didn't really see how robust Lame is internally, because we didn't have many situations where it was getting bounced around the arena. The only issue I know he was having at times, as was mentioned in the episode, was the wheels starting to fail. So maybe some good hits up into the air and the landings would have accelerated that process a bit. And then we get to see the bright side of sportsmanship. With a spectacular attempt to right Lameheart, which was either going to keep the fight going or give us a nice big hit at the end. That's what we're here for. Robots flying high. That's the good stuff.
Sportsmanship in all forms. In some fights, don't want to attack the opponent. In others, gonna just gonna go and try and send them flying and hope they land the right way up again.
I hope no one took the comment in the commentary too seriously about the sort of attack on the Irish.
I hope not. I assume not.
I feel like maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think that's meant to be a reference to Firestorm versus Dietor, the sort of contrived Robot Wars Extreme grudge match from a long time ago. I think that's what that was meant to be a reference to.
Who knows? Not I.
I don't know about you, but I, for one, am extremely glad that we're going to get to see more of Sore Loser in the final. And I'm very excited to see Lame in a big rumble.
Yes, I think that'll be good.
The pure speed will be a joy to behold.
Pure, unadulterated speed. Speed of the purest form.
I'm assuming that's a reference to something.
Not particularly, just, saying stupid things.
Ah, yes, Spinnerproof.
Combining random words in random orders.
Now there's your title.
Oh, dear. Now, you might not know it, given how much we've talked about ourselves already, but we've not actually been in Bogglepots yet. But we are in the next episode. And to prepare yourselves for it, if you would like to go and, really get yourself pumped up to see what we're going to be like, you can spend an hour and 45 minutes of your life watching in real time the final assembly. Well, I say final. The final-ish assembly of Hello There on YouTube.
If you're going to go and watch this video, watch it with subtitles.
Yes, absolutely. Put the subtitles on. Ryan put a lot of effort into subtitling the video in an amusing fashion, and it makes the video worth watching, so you should do that.
So I think effort is a strong term, but put it this way. As 1 hour 45 of watching us work, it is a slog. The subtitles may make it tolerable.
I mean, the subtitles encouraged me to watch it again, because I watched through it once when I was, in scare quotes, editing the video / checking that there wasn't anything too terrible that was said in it.
We do say some questionable stuff at points, I'll be honest.
Look.
There were some in-jokes that definitely needed explaining.
That's just the way. What do you mean, like beaning things?
I didn't actually explain that in the end.
And nor will we here.
It's a mystery for all of time. We haven't done this yet, but I feel like we should perhaps have a quick look ahead at the robots, just for a bit of context for people, which I realise you won't be prepared for, but fortunately I am an expert on all things Bugglebots and can completely explain everything that's going on with all of these machines.
Okay.
As evidenced by this episode. If I can just scroll down to the correct part of my other document and zoom in on the correct part. So, a quick primer on the competitors we have. We have Thunderchild, an extremely fast, extremely powerful wedge from America, driven by Nate. Great pedigree behind this machine. You have us with Hello There. Nothing to say about that. Daedalus, the sort of leading British Beetleweight Toon clone, with a weapon that, as far as I'm aware, had never been stopped ahead of Bugglebots in any fight. Clause 2, of course, a grand finalist from last year. Annie, Are You OK? A fantastic Australian undercutter by Ben from Team Panic on YouTube. Again, lots of experience, been through a lot of fights. And then finally, the champion-elect, Two Berg, Too Furious. Imagine the Berg, but it works. So that's what you have to look forward to this heat. I'm biased, but I think this is probably the most stacked heat of the lot. 3 big spinners, one of the best wedgies you will see in the UK, one of the best wedgies you will see in America, and also us.
Just bringing everything back down to earth.
I've said in a previous episode that Bugglebots is just an ongoing conflict between self-deprecation and confidence, and I know what side I'm on.
I think the entire world does at this point.
How are you feeling about our episode coming up?
I am nervous, man. I'm just nervous. I don't like seeing myself on camera, so...
I'm exactly the same. But there are certain moments from this episode that I am so excited to see again.
Yeah, I think I think it'll be good. I am looking forward to it. I'm just nervous about all the myriad ways that I could make an arse of myself.
No. All the myriad ways you will have already made an arse of yourself.
Well, no, it still could, because I don't know how I've been edited. This is the thing. The production people could have been very kind and cut out some of the dumb things that I said. I don't know.
Only time will tell if me calling this the Spinnerproof podcast will have made the cut. That's the worst thing that could happen.
It's just Spinnerproof, man.
But no, I am incredibly excited to see it all again. And I'm just excited to see what people make of the robot. Obviously, it's kind of had a public outing now with Euros. We've had a lot of feedback on it from that, but this is going to be seen by a lot more eyeballs, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'm going to stay away from the comments. Stay away from the Reddit. Ignore it all.
I'll pass on the good stuff, put it that way.
Excellent. That's the kind of bubble I can get behind.
Outro time?
I think so. You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episodes/64, and there you can find links to all the things we've been talking about today. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us your favourite power of 2.